Welcome to More Than Mindset, the only podcast that bridges the gap between spirituality and success. Go beyond the mind with clarity and confidence coach Kim Guillory and learn how to integrate your passion to serve with your skills and experience to create a business you love. Let's get started.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I have my new coach crush with me here today. My coach client crush, I should say. I absolutely love what Andee is doing in the world for parenting. And so I asked her to come on the show and share some of the goodness with you guys. And so I laugh because whenever someone has something that I've been stalking for a while, I call it like client crushing because I love it so much. And I really want to have this platform and community to be a space where everyone gets to share their soul essence with the world. And that's what I feel Andee is doing. And so here we are.
You're so nice. It's so kind of you. I do feel like I'm sharing my soul essence. So it's fun to hear someone else speak that because that is what I feel is getting this out into the world for parents to just see their potential really of what they can create for their kids. So this is so fun. I'm so glad we're going to talk about it.
Yes. So Andee is in Arizona.
Yeah. Good old Arizona. It's so hot and
Is it hot?
Dry? I mean, it depends on who you talk to. We're getting low, but the high, the highs are 70. So in the middle of the day, we're still hitting 70 degrees. So for some people that's hot. I remember telling somebody what our high was as a kid thinking it only is 80 and so much. And they're like, that is so hot, but it is a dry heat. But so I wouldn't say it's hot right now. It's actually to me really cold, but it's in the 60s and 70s is our top temp. So
it's nice here in Louisiana. The sun is out. We did have sleet warnings over the weekend, which is really weird for us.
That's so fun.
Today is nice and sunny and it's drying up all that yucky rain and muck. Anyway, Andee is in Arizona. She is the mother of 6, and I absolutely love her way of parenting, and I want to share it with you guys. So, Andee, I'm going to give you the floor to tell a little bit about just your family life, your personal life.
Well, it started off, I'm married to my high school sweetheart. So I've known my husband forever. So from a young age, I was dreaming about the family we were going to have together and all of the things, which ended up happening years later. And we had our kids pretty quickly. So before I knew it, I was in a world of chaos because I thought I was going to be a certain kind of mom and I would be able to handle parenting. And what I found was I was completely ill-equipped. I had no idea what I was doing. And all of the things that I had seen or seemed like the normal parenting things weren't working, or they would work for a short period of time. And then I felt like the cost of them was so negative that I was finding myself kind of stuck in a, what is the expression?
Yeah. What does that look like though? The cost was too much. It's an example of that.
Yeah. So that's because I didn't get this at first, because I just started doing the discipline, consequence, reward cycle. That is pretty much what a lot of people define as parenting. That's what I thought. The essence of parenting was discipline, giving them consequences. And that's just pretty typical because that's around the World War II. The whole behavior modification became kind of mainstream. But specifically what that looked like is, my kids would be fighting with each other or not clean up their room or, the mirror. And it's because it started when my kids were just little. And so the examples were, temper tantrums and meltdowns because they didn't get a cookie before dinner. And I would use, the pretty typical tools of a parent, the threatening, you guys, if you don't start getting along, then you're going to lose out on this, or the threatening of you're going to go to your room or you're not going to be able to play with your friends. Or if I was feeling on a nice day, I would think that this was a great alternative, was bribing them. If you're nice to each other, then we'll do, we'll go on that bike ride that we talked about, or I'll give you, something. And the cost looked like there's a couple ways that the cost started becoming pretty apparent to me. One is the rewards and punishments had to keep up leveling. I had to get stronger rewards and stronger punishments for the behavior to continue to be able to be managed by those consequences and rewards. The rewards had to be bigger. They weren't satisfied with 1 cookie. The next day it had to be 2 cookies. Or the consequence went from, just a slight, really quick timeout to an hour. And then, it felt like I had to escalate everything. And that was something that became apparent. I think most parents can see that, like, hey, I have to, today I asked 2 times, tomorrow I have to ask 12 times, and it continues to need to like grow. And I thought that doesn't feel right. But also even more than that was the cost on the relationship. I felt intuitively there was something off. Like when I was really, it felt like kind of like I was manipulating them to do what I wanted. Sometimes, if it was a safety issue, that was one thing, but most of the time it wasn't a safety issue. It was just like this personal preference, like, hey, clean because I want it clean. And this is really bothering me that you're talking so loud. And the communication that was being conveyed that I didn't catch on at first, but became apparent was there's something wrong with me. Mom can't handle me. Mom doesn't like me. And that kind of message that started being conveyed to them became apparent to me. I would see it in their eyes. I would see their confidence drop. I would see the behavior even get worse because they felt so terrible about themselves. They're like, well, I'm a bad person. I'm a bad kid. And I was like, ooh, to me, that was the kicker was I'm not going to do things that damage relationships. There's got to be another way. I had no idea what that other way was. I couldn't even conceptualize what it would look like because it felt like my options were correction, discipline, or passive parenting. Like it felt like those were the 2 spectrums. And I felt like I didn't really like either of those options. I didn't want my kids to walk.
Like a numbing out. Yeah. Like I just can't handle it. So it's a numbing out. Go have a drink, leave them with someone, go and do something else or
go do me time, or something like, and maybe just give up over the messy house, like just tolerate the bad behavior because I just didn't want to correct. Like that was one side, or me escaping, or me just continuing to up-level the consequences, like get them bigger and bigger or more severe, or the rewards, more exciting. And that's not really what I wanted. I remember thinking like, there is no way that this is the only option for me is to do one of these 2 things. There's got to be another way. And I started to just go on a search. I'm like, I've got to figure this out. There has to be a way that we can parent from a place of love and compassion. Because what I really wanted my kids is to want to listen to me. I wanted them to,
How old were your children at this time?
My oldest was in kindergarten or 1st grade. I had 5 out of my 6 at this time. I remember the house. I remember when this like epiphany hit me. I had a couple kids at school, at least my oldest. I can't remember exactly the ages of all the kids. It's like this big blur, but I get it. I had 3 kids. No, I just had 1 at home because my second child was home. My girl, Megan, was home. So I had 3 kiddos and 1 baby asleep and a child at school. And I got busy doing something and I was like, oh my gosh, they're playing so nicely. Like, this is fabulous. So I really got just some stuff done. And all of a sudden I realized I probably should go check on them. And I went into the playroom and they had found literally like a Costco size bottle of baby powder. I had baby powder back then. And they had made the playroom into like this winter wonderland. And like, I have pictures because thank goodness I like was able to recover enough in the moment and not totally but I did lose I lost my mind for a while. And I was like, what in the crap have you guys done? Like doused each other, we had just bought a brand new, which was a big deal. We had no money. We bought like a GameCube, like for Christmas. It was brand new, doused it, never worked again. Every cupboard was full. It was like winter. We had a big beanbag that was brown that was now a big white snowball. I was like, oh my gosh.
I'm trying not to laugh. Like I'm muting myself so I'm not laughing, but I can so be there with you.
Yeah. Right. It was, yeah. And I had a baby. So I was so tired, right? I was like, I was not sleeping. I was not like, I went into that room and for some reason in that moment, it was like the world had ended for me. I was like, this is not like, and I yelled and and lost it. And I remember looking because my son who was there, who's now 17, and he was probably like 3 at the time or 4, he looked at me and I could tell he was so like, when I first walked in, he was like, he had this big grin on his face. He thought he had done this really fun thing. Like they were all they weren't just trying to be mischievous. They were just clueless and just thought, this is super fun. And we're having this, imaginative experience, And I remember looking at his face going from like excitement, like, Mom, isn't this so fun, to like complete despair and just crestfallen. And that was I had more moments than that, but that was like one of those moments for me where I was like, this is like, after I yelled, after I lost it, after I completely crushed all of their, souls in that moment, it felt like, complete mom failure. I thought, no, like, this is not going to work. And I had, for some reason, how sometimes we're given those moments of clarity. I was able to go from completely losing my mind to like all of a sudden looking at his face, realizing I'm not going to do this. And I paused. It was like a magical moment. I don't know how I did it. I couldn't recreate it for years because I didn't know exactly what had happened. Now I know. I changed my thoughts, right? I know I get what happened now, but I had no idea what I had done in the moment, why I believed that. Anyway, and was able to then we started laughing about it. I was able to switch it and take photos, and we laughed, and the cleanup was actually not as hard as my brain was trying to make it when I first walked in the room. So I think I noticed that there was another way. I had no idea how to do it because there were lots of moments after that I got triggered and I couldn't recover like that. But I had like this glimpse, probably because I'd been so wanting it, I'd been messing up so bad. I had this like glimpse, this hope, and it was enough to say, okay, there is another way. I don't know exactly what I just did, but there is another way.
Yeah, I call this like punching holes in the doubt or punching holes in the beliefs. It's like there's only this particular perception or view, and suddenly there was some doubt, like, wait a minute.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that I had this little moment where things worked out, because it gave me enough belief that I kept going. And when I messed up over and over and over again after that, I just kept saying, I know there's something that happened that I can recreate. I just don't know exactly how to do it. I just don't have the recipe yet. I just don't understand what, the dynamic, but I just was on a study. I was like on a mission. It was like do or die, because I am not going to keep doing what I did, had done before. So
can we talk about this for a second? Because I think it's really important to speak this for the parents who have done the other way, because there's so much guilt and blame. And, I even hear it in your voice, like the messing up. I kept messing up, and, that.
Yeah, I know.
And I, even for myself, I have so much guilt. I talk to my children about it. They laugh at me about it, because, because it was, 5 kids. It's insane. I was so young to have so many children, all of this, I had 2 that were within a year apart. I get it. I get everything you're saying. And I had my moment, and it was hard. It was so hard. I threw stuff. I cussed. I had the belt out. That was I had one experience with the belt, and the belt buckle hit my daughter on the top of the head. And I still cry about it today. And I never touched it again. I never touched it again. I never thought of it as wrong. It's what I saw. It's what we knew, but it changed everything, that one moment. And I want to give the parents permission to let themselves off of the hook, because as much as I know, it's all I knew. It's what I had. It's the resources that I had been given. It was hard. It was hard to be in the moment where all we want is to love them. And we want to be the example for them. We take that responsibility seriously, and maybe it's just for me. Maybe this moment is just for me to give myself permission, and it's not for anyone else, but I'll just pause for myself if that's the case, and
no, it's not just for you. Yeah. It's a huge part of the journey for me. And I did use the word to mess up just because like that is so part of our languaging around. We think there is even such thing as that, but there's not. And
there's so much judgment, like about you used a belt, or I can't have, you did what? And it was like, you ate sugar and flour. It's like, it's kind of that kind of moment where, guys, if we can drop the judgment and comparison of what we think is so wrong and dangerous, and kind of just be in the experience of using what we knew to get where we are. And if we don't give that grace and permission, then we can't arrive where you and I arrived at today.
100%. Yeah, totally. We have to go back and on those moments that we thought we messed up, realize that was exactly what needed to happen. That was the best we could have done in that moment. And I am able to look back after. There's a mental gymnastics that I felt like I had to I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but there was some tug of war with my brain releasing the judgment and being like, if you release the judgment, that means you're, letting yourself off the hook and you're not being serious. And like,
they're all going to go to jail.
Right. Well, or like, you're being irresponsible. Like you did mess up. Like you need to take ownership for your mistakes. And it's not that we're not really being serious and introspective and looking at the behavior we've had in the past, but we're not doing it from a place of judgment or fear or scarcity or, in a negative way. We're just saying like, oh, let me look at that with compassion and love and really believe that that truly was the best I could do. Because as parents, we do love our kids all the time, even when we maybe act in a way we don't like to. The love is there. I would say for moms, like I've never had the experience where a mom's like, yeah, I just kind of don't love my kids very much. I was like
times where I said I didn't love parenting though.
That's different. That's different.
I love the kids.
But you love your kids. You're like, oh, they always love their kids. And so and I think that's why the belief that we need to hold on to this beating ourselves up about the behavior starts getting so strong inside of us, because we feel like, well, if I don't beat myself up over it, then maybe I don't really love them. Like maybe I am not a very good person or whatever. But as we go through the reality of processing the past from a place of love and compassion, we learn so much about what we maybe can do better the next time, but we don't do it from a place of we could have done better in that moment. I truly don't believe that was possible. Like in that moment, because of the way your brain was firing and the hormones in your head, that was going through your body and all of the programming and all of the things that you've learned by society, like that was whatever your brain thought was the best. Because if we could have chosen more love, more compassion, more patient in that moment, 100% would have done it, if we could have.
Yeah. And something else that you said that, I felt completely aligned with was we didn't have much money. And so the fear and the anger and the, all of the things that come up when, oh my God, we got you this, and why can't you just appreciate it? And, and all of that starts tumbling through. And I think that's the case for many of us, especially who have grown children, but even today, where, and this epidemic, no, it's a pandemic.
Pandemic.
That's happening, and people losing their jobs and, not sure if they're going to have another paycheck, and kind of experiencing all of this stress and anxiety compelled on top of this is my responsibility. And, there's so much happening all at one time. And you hit the nail on the head with the chemicals that are coming through our body. We are reacting we don't know how to compose. We don't have the tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And all of those other areas outside of our parenting, so to speak, like, they impact us, the job, the money, the weather, the pandemic, all of these things, they're, like you said, are influencing our ability to show up in a certain way at any given moment. Like the fact maybe I had a baby, I wasn't sleeping, like I was tired and exhausted, and you know what I mean? All of those things impact. And when we look back and we evaluate how things went in the past, that literally I was doing the best I could, allows you to change the future. Because if we're beating ourselves up over it, we get stuck in the past. We just keep bringing it forward. The terrible mom I am. I'm very impatient. Look at all this evidence of all of this collection of data to show how bad of a mom I am. And then we wonder why we can't get out of it. It's because we're so stuck in that identity.
And it's preventing the one thing that we need, which is presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can't be present when you're so stuck in your past, right? When you're living in the past. Yeah.
I remember it was not just living in the past, but I was like fearing the future. And I was doing it because I felt so responsible for how they turned out. And I had to discipline this way, or I had the evidence of what would happen of, the going to jail and the getting in trouble and the, all of the things that could go wrong if I got this wrong. And so I was coming from that pressure of trying to prevent, because I even thought I was in control of that.
Mm-hmm. Turns out we're not. But and it's funny that the worst case scenario drama that moms go to, like they're going to be lazy and they're never going to amount to anything because they're not getting their homework turned in, or they're going to drive, their wife crazy because they can't clean anything, No
one's going to marry them. They'll never leave.
No one's going to marry them. They're going to be a bum on the street. We start being there instead of in the present too, like exactly what you said. And the crazy thing is about the future is, so I would say almost all the time, whatever we dream up in the future never really happens anyway, and why, if something is going to happen that's unfortunate in the future that we wish, like, why would we start trying to experience it ahead of time? Like, do we just get more of fear? And when we're in that place of fear, we don't get to thus be in a belief that everything's going to work out just as it should. And our kids are amazing. We start forgetting how incredible they are because we're so focused on their weaknesses or what they're not doing right or the problems. And they feel that, they feel that from us when that's what we're talking about, that's what we're focusing on. And not to say that we don't have conversations, that we don't think about those things, but just not from a place of fear, from a place of belief that like, we're going to totally figure this out. I totally know how to help him, in this way, or I wonder what would serve him the best, in this situation, instead of like, I got to fix him and control him. None of us like that feeling. None of us like other adults coming to us. Like as adults, we don't like other adults coming to us and giving us feedback from a place of fear or like negativity, like, or worst case scenario thinking, that's usually when we're like, no, thank you. Like, I'm not going to listen to you. But if someone comes to us and they believe in us and we know they like trust us and they know we're doing our best and they give us some feedback, might be the same words, but we receive it differently. And so much of it is what we think or what we're believing about our kids and who they are. And then also like our self-concept of us as a mother. Like if we don't feel like we're capable, then that's going to be tricky too, or doubting ourselves.
So I want to make sure we give the audience some, from here, because I'm sure they're like, okay, we get it. We live there. Now what? What did she figure out? What does she know? And where was her husband? Where was their father in all of this, right? These are the questions that come up. So I do want to make sure that we cover this. So you had this moment, snow globe all over the playroom, freaking out, no money. They ruined the toy that was just given, and you see the broken heart, you catch it. I want to say like you catch your shit. And now where do we move forward? You were like, okay, there's got to be something better. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go and figure it out. And you figured this out. You figured out a system or a way or a framework, a process, something that you were able to ground in, or what I say is like an anchor that you could go back to that would help you. What was that? Where are you now?
Well, where I am now and where I was after the Winter Wonderland playroom experience.
Take us to both. How many years is this? Your children are grown now,
Yeah, my oldest was probably 7, maybe 8. I can't remember exactly. And baby who I didn't even have at the time is now 12. So now my kids are 21 to 12. So yeah, a lot of years have passed. I've been a mom for over 21 years. I mean, in my brain, the best outcome after the snow globe experience was that everything was fixed and I never messed up again. But that was not the case because I really didn't understand how I had done it.
What a boring story that would be.
I know. I was like, and then everything was perfect and I never messed up. No, like it was actually, in some ways it was harder. I wanted to believe there was another way before that. Now I experienced, and it wasn't that I hadn't ever had shifts before. Like I wasn't always like losing my mind, but this was a pretty big one where I thought like, okay, like I was really fired up. I was really angry and I was able to shift it. So there's something here. It got a little bit more frustrating before it got better because now I had the awareness more clear than ever and no tools to implement.
Yes.
So it was really hard.
And
I believed in the possibility. I believed in the possibility more than ever. Yeah. Had no map. So it was a lot of stumbling around in the dark, a lot of trial and error. I sought out parenting experts and books, and I would go in open to whatever I was trying to explore and then just find the things that resonated. So I started picking up little things here and there. I didn't find at the time any complete solution. That it took some time. It really took me piecing together different things for me to find something that now I call, this connective approach to parenting, or the connect method, like this framework of using connection instead of correction as our primary response to off-track behavior and to just life in general with our kids. So yeah, it just was a slow, in some ways, daunting process of knowing better, but not doing better, and falling back into old patterns and habits, and just slowly replacing beliefs the best I could. And it feels like as I went, it became like I was able to, as soon as I started finding a couple of things that I started understanding of a little bit, then I would be able to start attracting, like I would find things and I'd be like, ooh, and I got better and better at discerning, okay, this works, or let me try this. And started studying developmental psychology, didn't know what that was at the time, mindfulness and mind work, that thoughts create our emotions. And that whole thing was really empowering. And just little by little, just found different pieces and parts and puzzles and just loved every time I could find something, especially, and I went to school to be a nurse. So I love science and data. So I loved the developmental psychology stuff and the statistics and the studies and the evidence. Like my brain like loves the evidence. I know you probably are not surprised by this, but I love the evidence. And so that evidence I was able to turn into stronger beliefs and then glean more of like, oh, this is what worked. Let me figure out how to do this. Because a lot of the studies were done not in families of, they weren't in a family, maybe it was in a school setting, or maybe it was just a experiment they did, with kids where they would take toddlers and do different things with them and see how they responded. And so I had to kind of sort through like, how does it actually look in real life and like real moments when the kid's having a breakdown, and then my kids were getting older. So then I was having to start to apply this to older elementary kids. And then how does this look for teenagers? And now how does it look like for adult children? Yeah. So it was just a process of mining the things out there that were good and that were connective.
This is a great place to kind of drop in the understanding the frontal cortex is, underdeveloped in these children, and we're treating them as if it were fully developed, like, cause we don't know. We're like, you must be an idiot. Why wouldn't you know this? It's like, but they really don't have access to that control. They're emotionally driven. And even that, haven't been fully taught on what to do with those, so do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yes. Because this was such good information for my brain who loves information. 7 is like around the time that most prefrontal cortexes even start to come online. So before 7, like literally no logic or reason. And we so use logic and reason. And we think that's why consequences just don't do what we think they're going to do, because they literally cannot make the logical connection between like, oh, I did this and mom does. I mean, they can start to do it kind of, but it's an emotional connection, not a logical connection. And so that's so powerful to just realize. And that's best case scenario. Like 7 is best. And that's like barely coming online. Like there's starting to be blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. There's starting to be some activity there. There's starting to be, but nothing like an adult. And what really blew my mind is 25 is the age for women and 30 for men that the brain is fully developed.
It's crazy.
Like,
but I'm like, you just treat your husband, like think of him as a 4-year-old, because that's kind of where they are. Like we expect so much, so quick, so fast, and it goes back to the judgment and comparison. We're always going to suffer, if we keep doing this. But yeah, that is beautiful information. So for you guys who did not hear that, I'm going to let her just kind of say it one more time.
Prefrontal cortex is an amazing part of our brain. It's something that's really unique to humans. It's what allows us to have our higher thinking. It allows us to think about our thinking and to make logical connections. We're the most fully developed prefrontal cortex, and it's not even really present in a lot of animals. So it wasn't really even fully developed for me, probably, but it's important because a lot of times we think, hey, well, we'll just talk to the kids and we'll like help them explain why this is a bad idea. Like we don't color with Sharpies on the wall. And this was like one of my kids like loved this. Like we don't color with Sharpies.
Permanent marker on the floor.
I was like, we don't, we think we're going to like create this beautiful argument with data and be able to use logic and reason with our 4-year-old. And they're like, yeah. Oh, and they're like, nod their head and be like, yeah, do you understand? They'll be like, uh-huh. And they have the best intentions. They're like, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to make you upset. I don't want to make, and then the next minute you turn around and they're coloring on the wall with the Sharpie and you're like, what is going on? Like how, and it's just literally because they are not making that connection. It's not that they're not trying to, it's not that they're being defiant. It's not that they're trying to be difficult. Their little brains don't work the way our adult brains work. It's still developing. And so if we can just give space for that emotional driven little toddler that's in the world, and even like elementary school, I mean, it takes a long time, 25 for women, like I said, 30 for men. That's best case scenario. It doesn't always happen at that age. I think we just would be happier as parents to not like expect our little people to be full grown adults, because it's just not possible. And the other thing is, there's so many beautiful ways to help them. Right. Like we work with the emotion. One of my favorite developmental psychologists says play is like the best thing we can do with little kids. Like we think it's about consequences and rewards and logic and reason. He's like, they're one motion drivers. So if we can just harness that emotion and let them feel it and like redirect it, like that's such a powerful thing. So there's definitely a lot of us, I was in this boat that just as parents, we just don't, no one's told us that.
Right.
We don't actually understand the brain development part. And we don't have to get into all the specifics of it, of how the limbic system works versus the, prefrontal cortex, but just to know, like, they're just not thinking logically. So let's just not use that as a tool for a while. Even as a teenager, sometimes they're not thinking logically.
Yeah. Let's talk about what you did find that does work and kind of go in that path, because I think that is, what can they take away from this? What's the difference between connection and correction? What did you discover in this process? What's your wisdom that you can share and pass on? Because I do feel like we are standing in the gap between generations of change in the way things are. We're blessed and lucky to be in the position to be able to do this, even though it feels terrible whenever you're trying to figure it out for yourself. But there is someone listening that you can give a shortcut to.
I'm going to give it out as if that was me, because if I had that shortcut, man, that would have been amazing. I would have loved that. And I want that for really, that's my mission, is like, I got to get this out to anybody who it resonates with. It's fun. It feels good. It works so much better. But one of the things I found, I really didn't understand. I thought play was something we grew out of and was for the little kids. And I didn't, it was because they couldn't handle big kid stuff or adult stuff, and it was not valuable. And it's so interesting because when they've studied play is like when we can, and as adults, we should be playing more. And it doesn't necessarily mean we need to be drawn. Like it look like we can play as we work. Like it can be a playful experience. We can have fun. But when we play, our thinking brain is like working really well. Our ability to cognitively process at whatever level we're at. If we're a little kid, it's not too high, but as an adult, it's a lot higher. Like emotions aren't overpowering us. So that's the power of play. It also drops defenses. So if you think about with a kid, like if you're going into like, this is the consequence and this is the root, or this is, you're threatening, ultimatum, bribes, the walls of defenses come up. Yeah. So now your ability to make an impact on them is diminishing. And with play, when we can engage in play, the defenses stay down. The hormones that start getting released in our body increase the bond, and the relationship is actually increased, which is what we want, right? Because the people that we are most willing to listen to are the people we feel connected to, the people who we have a tight relationship with. Learning kind of takes place within this context of relationship. When our child has off-track behavior and we're able to connect with them, which I call it seeing and hearing them. So we look in their eyes, we make sure we have they're actually aware of us, they can respond to our voice, and we take a moment to get present with them, like to be with them before we say something about whatever they're doing. Right. So it's just like one little moment of like a little connection, because if they're not seeing, if they won't look at you in the eyes, if they won't nod in response to what you're saying, you have no working relationship. You probably shouldn't go beyond that point. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, if there's a danger, you need to get them out of harm's way. I'm not saying that.
Yeah. The nervous system fires up, and then it blocks out the reception.
Yeah, nothing's going to make it through. Right. And it's funny because with adults, we would never go to lunch with a friend. And if the friend wouldn't look at us or respond, we would never just blow through, be push through the conversation. We'd be like, something's odd here before we continue. I need to be aware that there's no connection here, right? We wouldn't push through, but with kids, we blow right through it. We just bulldoze over it. And we
disrespect.
Yeah. Yeah. So we just take this moment, I call it, just to see them, look at them in the eyes, see if they'll smile and nod to us. If that connection is made, then we can set a limit. And I always say, set a limit that's 5 words or less, because that forces us to stop doing the lecture train. Yes. or get super emotional. And there's a whole element of this that I can't even go into probably right now about how the mom can stay in a place of not getting triggered. So obviously if the mom's, off the rails and frustrated, this is not going to be as powerful for you. But if you're able to stay calm and look at them in the eyes and see and hear them, and then just set a firm limit, I can't let you hit your brother. We don't hit brothers. And we just touch them, maybe their shoulders, or if they're running towards a brother, maybe we just kind of hold them softly. And we just, they might throw a fit. They might have a meltdown. They might say, "You're so mean," or whatever they say. And you just stay calm and say, "Oh yeah, it's hard not to hit our brothers. Sometimes we just want to hit our brothers, but we can't hit our brothers." If they were having a little wrestling match and you felt like it wasn't okay, and you just stay with them. You keep just saying these little 5-word things. Cause one way is you just see them, you set the limit, and you're present with them. You didn't set the limit from across the room. You didn't say, "Boy, stop fighting in there. Why are you fighting?" You're taking a minute to connect, you're with them. And then you just stay You stay with them. That's one possibility, right? And just instead of sending them away to their room, you guys are so much, get away. Like, and you might need to separate them. I'm not saying you don't, but you don't give the message like, you guys are too much. I can't handle you. You're
out of here. Get away from me. Get out of the environment. It's just that I do think that so much of that messaging is what we're dealing with. The unworthiness we're dealing with.
Right. Because when we stay present, the message we're sending is, you're not too much for me. We're totally going to figure this out. I'm here for you. We're on the same team. I get it. Express those emotions, like just the emotional, like freedom to express their emotions is like, just that alone is so beautiful. So there's the see, set, stay. And then another variation that sometimes I set the limit and then maybe play with them. Be like, oh, like in the same scenario, you might say like, oh, I can like, look at those cute little arms. Those cute little arms, you know, this is like a little kid. Those cute little arms are too sweet to push their brother down. I'm going to have to kiss those sweet little arms. And you just start playing with them, because then you're able to hijack in a good way their emotions and get them to kind of switch out of it and get into like play mode. And sometimes that's all that's needed. Their little brains, when they're 4 or 5 or 6, they're not making the connections between I hit my brother and I'm a mean person. Yeah. So you're just able to pivot and then just get out of it. And they're going to start to see like, oh, I'm not allowed to hit my brother. Mom's going to come set that limit, but I'm not in trouble. I'm not a bad boy. And maybe sometimes she stays with me. Sometimes she plays with me. And that's just one example of how to kind of navigate it in a totally different way where we stay connected instead of going to correct them. We're still setting a limit. See, it's still like but you're not doing it from you're a problem. This is the problem. This is not okay.
It's really just a very simple technique for you, for the parent but first they need to be able to attain that presence for themselves, right? So that's where you're saying there's some taking the parent through the processing also.
Right. And there's a whole part of just our awareness of what we're thinking and how we're feeling about our kids and get clear on that so that we can get intentional and stay present and not get triggered in the moment. And I want to just say though, this doesn't mean that if you're feeling triggered, if you're feeling frustrated, like there's anything like that's just part of the human experience, right? We're going to get triggered sometimes. It's just knowing how to navigate it, how to start practicing new beliefs about your kids, about yourself, about your capabilities. So we have to focus on that too. And I think that's one of the things I found I can't think of any of the parenting programs that I found where they talk about that. They'll say, stay calm. Don't get frustrated.
Count to 10.
Count to 10. Like go on a walk.
10. What is 10? Where do you start or count backwards? And like you don't have access to it.
Yeah. So there's no direction on that. Yeah, it's just agreed. And we can't. I don't know about you, but if someone tells me, be calm, stop being so frustrated, like that usually doesn't work very well. Like the awareness of like what's behind that. What's my belief that's causing me to feel so triggered? So going through the using the model, using mindfulness, using thought downloads, like going into our body and opening up to our emotions, all of that stuff is so important as a mom that we do, because we're retraining our brain on how to believe about the behavior, like to look past the behavior. We think the behavior means something about our kids and about us. We have to uncover the belief and sort through it so that the belief is different and we can start to stay present and not get triggered when they're hitting each other, not make it mean anything about them, just to go in and say, oh, their brains aren't able to set the limit right now. I need to, and let me just do this from a place of complete love and acceptance that nothing's gone wrong with my kids. Like nothing's wrong with them and nothing's wrong with me that they're doing it.
Nothing's wrong with me. Exactly. And it takes us right back to the same exact process we're always talking about in this community. You got to get present first so you can start unpacking this story and unraveling these emotions and these reactions, and then you can change, navigate, and create a new direction or pivot, like you're saying. It's like, we didn't have the framework, Andee. We just didn't have the framework. The books didn't have it. I remember throwing a book against the wall. I was trying to figure out how to stay married, and raise those kids and keep myself alive, or want to be alive. There was so much going on. And 300-400 pages, these books over and over, all of the boundary books, understanding temperaments. And, and then that's another thing. Each one of these children are different. You think you're going to figure it out with one, and then you're going to have the process, for the next one. Not true. Not true. Every single one are different.
Yes. They're all different. They're all unique.
But the framework works for everyone. The
framework's the same. Yeah. The framework's the same. And once you start learning that for yourself, and you can start, really what you teach, the punchline approach, right? We're like applying that to the moms and helping them start to see like, I really am doing my best. I yelled today and that was the best I guess I could do. Let me learn from that. Let me process that. Let me get present with that. Let me not like going through that work for ourselves. That's what I found is such a critical part of the process. Like I remember thinking something was wrong with me because I couldn't stay calm. I'd read the book and be like, if you stay calm, and I'd be like, it's be one sentence or something. And I'm like, what's the matter with me that I can't stay calm? There must be something really wrong with me. And I just want to say to anybody who's listening, nothing's wrong with us because we feel emotions. Nothing's wrong with you as a mom that you're getting triggered. Like nothing is wrong with you.
Feel emotions, and some of them, like their temperaments are so. Did you watch Soul? Did you watch the new?
I've watched part of it. I haven't watched all of it. My kids have watched it all a couple of times, but I haven't finished the whole thing.
It shows like where they're getting that little personality piece. It's like, oh, and we're like, what are we going to get this time?
Yeah.
It feels so real. Of course, on the other side of the bridge, I can look back. But when I was in the middle of this stuff, man, it was deep. It was hard. And if my kids are listening to this, I've apologized to them so many times. I mean, they pick on me and, we talk about it. And I really let myself off the hook, for a lot of it because I really didn't know what I was doing. But when we know better, we do better, and I think that's the mission you and I have in common, that, we really want to help it to be easier, give them the framework, give them this is the process, and it's a matter of practicing it consistently. That's it. That we just tatter through that. It's like we try, we assess, we tweak, we try again, but at least you have like something tangible, something that can stick, this anchor of, wait, where am I at? Where's the process? What part, what step, and keep taking yourself back to yourself. Because they don't trust themselves. I think I don't think I did. I did not trust. Like, who would put me responsible for these children, right? With no handbook, no manual, no guidance. Like, how did this even happen? And I remember thinking, like, with my husband, like, are you crazy?
Yeah. Yeah. So much self-doubt. We have so much self-doubt in our abilities. As we gain more awareness around it, if you're listening, like wherever you pause is the perfect place to pause. If you recognize 2 days later, oh, I don't love how that worked out. I could have done something different maybe, or I want to do something different next time is probably a better way to say it. Like whenever you pause, that's when you get to open up to like compassion and awareness and growth. And there's this really awesome quote. I'm going to probably botch it, but Nelson Mandela says something like, I never fail. I only learn or grow. Mm-hmm. And I say that to my brain I'm just remind myself, nope, I don't fail. I only learn and grow. I think the only time we fail is when we judge and we cut ourselves off to growth because we keep it stuck. We're like, that's who I am. I don't know. We beat ourselves up. That's the only time I think, and I don't even know if failing is the right word, but that's when we get stuck. That's when we stop growing as quickly. But if we can just open up into that,
it's like afraid to be wrong or have gotten it wrong or done it wrong, instead of just like really just letting the experience be the experience, and letting that off.
All perfect.
I hate that we're out of time. I really want to do continue this and do a whole nother show on it, but just give a parent an idea of what do you offer? How do you help them?
Yeah, I love sharing how I help, because this is what I wish someone had offered me when I was in the midst of the aftermath of that snow disaster or baby powder disaster. But I help moms just really start to lean into this belief that connect. And it really is a belief. And for some people, it's a big leap of faith because there's such evidence and society is so, I don't know, just has this belief that like correction and discipline is the essence of parenting, and help parents lean into this belief that parenting isn't discipline. It's not telling our kids what to do and not to do. It's truly creating an environment, like cultivating an environment where they fulfill their potential. That's what we really want. I mean, I know our moms will come to me and be like, I just want my kids to listen. But really, when we dive deeper, they want to feel like they've done their best. They want to know that when their kids leave, they are living their best life, and they want to have a dreamy relationship with their kids. They want to just feel, relationship. It really all comes back to them feeling connected to their kids. And that's what it's all about. And we just lean into that.
To it, but being like, it's the juicy, intimate, joyous relationship of connecting and getting to know each other, because we think we made them, so they're supposed to be a certain way. That's so not true. We're so far from the truth. It's like we're getting to know each other and how we contribute to the world.
Yeah, I like to think of it like a plant, like that we don't know what it is. So like we go and we get this mystery plant. We know it's a plant. Like it may be starting to sprout green, but we're like not sure if it's an oak tree or a daffodil. We're like, I don't know. And we just have to start to like figure out, how do we get to know what this plant needs? How much sun does it need? How much fertilizer does it need? And we don't have maybe the owner's manual, we don't know exactly. So we've got it's trial and error. We figure it out. Like all of the potential is in the seed. My only job is to help that seed become whatever it's supposed to become. And so to take that pressure off, like, it's not my seed. Like, I have no idea how to make a seed. I don't know how to make a seed that would like grow into a plant. Like, I can't do that on my own. My job's not to decide what it becomes, just to help it become what it's supposed to become.
Oh my God, I have the chills everywhere. So I really just have to stop with that one and take a moment. That's so good. Thank you.
Breathe it in. The tendency is we think we're a sculptor and we have this piece of marble and we're sculpting it into the statue of amazingness. And we kind of are deciding what it's becoming. But when we can release that and be like, nope, it's not my creation. I'm just here to tend it. Then so much of the burden of responsibility shifts from what we think is it, like the correction and like the chiseling the rough edges, to cultivating an environment where they can grow. So it just takes a lot of the pressure off.
So you see why I have the crush. Oh, my new client crush. This is good stuff. Again, thank you for putting it out there, and we will definitely get you back on the show. What I'd like to do is a Q&A. And so I'm going to invite the audience and anyone in the More Than Mindset group to, we'll just compile a list of questions, and then we'll come back on and we'll do it more in the Q&A style so that you can share. Because, there's so many incidences. There's so many things that come up that someone else is thinking about right now, in this moment. Well, what about when they do this? Or what about when this happens? Or what about, and we didn't even get to the part about your husband, their father. It's like, there's just not enough time to go to all of the places. But I think this was a beautiful introduction. Thank you for coming on. We will continue this. Is there anything I did not ask you that you're just itching to tell the audience?
Let's end there. That's perfect.
Alrighty, guys, we're going to end there. And like I said, you can find us in the More Than Mindset Facebook group. Self-Healing Masters is the place where we're really hashing out this work, on the daily for the humans to make the changes, and it is all about relationship. At the end of the day, our whole entire life is all about relationship. How do we get to know each other, love each other, have compassion and gentleness? And it's not about like healing the individual or healing the human. It's about healing humanity and bringing this all to wholeness and connection with each other, which is exactly what Andee is helping in, with parents and their children. And until next week, that's it. Would you like to say goodbye?
Yeah. Thanks, Kim. Bye, everybody. This was really fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode of More Than Mindset.